You felt it for years, even if you couldn't name it. The pressure, the subtle expectations, the questions hidden behind forced smiles. When are you settling down? Still single? So, no girlfriend yet. It lingers in every holiday gathering, every phone call with relatives, every scroll through social media where people parade relationships like trophies. You're made to feel like being alone is a temporary malfunction that must be repaired, a phase you're supposed to outgrow, a sign something's wrong with you. But what if it isn't? What if solitude isn't a failure, but a strategy? What if walking alone isn't weakness, but intelligence? Men today are told a story that no longer matches the world they live in, a story written for a different era. A time when marriage was security, companionship was survival, and settling down was the only path available. But that world is gone, and yet the pressure remains, the expectation remains, the judgment remains. You've been taught that your worth is determined by what you provide for others, not by who you become for yourself. You're told that peace comes from building a life with someone else, often long before you ever learn what peace even looks like. But look around carefully. Is this formula actually working? We live in an age where connection is superficial, commitment is rare, and distraction masquerades as affection. The world tells you that being single means you're broken, but never asks if you might simply be choosing what's healthiest. So let me ask you a question most men never hear. What if the strongest decision you could make right now is not to find someone, but to finally find yourself? Because here's the truth. Choosing to be alone doesn't make you damaged. It makes you deliberate. It means you see the game for what it is. It means you're no longer willing to participate in a system designed to drain you, distract you, and dilute who you could become. You're not falling behind. You're breaking out. You're reclaiming your time, your focus, your potential, and your sanity. This isn't bitterness. It's maturity. It's the decision to build a foundation solid enough that no person, no relationship can pull it apart. The world will try to shame you for choosing this path. It will whisper that you're failing, that you're missing out, that you're incomplete. But incomplete compared to what? A relationship built on convenience instead of compatibility? An obligation you were pressured into? A life where you abandon yourself just to keep the peace? No. The moment you stop chasing what they told you to want and start creating what you actually want, everything shifts. That quiet feeling that rises inside you when you're alone, that's not loneliness, that's clarity, that's freedom, that's control over your life, and that's where everything begins. The silent shift men are making. Look closely. Men across the world are stepping away from the noise, not loudly, not with anger, not with dramatic statements, quietly, calmly, decisively. They're walking away from expectations they never agreed to, from relationships that drain more than they give, from a dating culture built on insecurity, confusion, and constant performance. This isn't a trend, it's a correction. Men aren't giving up on connection. They're giving up on sacrificing themselves for it. They're done trading peace for pressure, done handing out energy without reciprocity, done trying to be enough for people who don't even know what they want. Some call them loners, some call them detached, some call them cold. But that's not what they are. They're awake. Because at some point, each of these men asked the one question that changes everything. What about me? That question slices through decades of conditioning. It exposes the truth most men spend their whole lives avoiding. You have been taught to give, long before you ever learned to choose. You were told, provide, sacrifice, protect. Put yourself last. And if you do it well enough, maybe someone will stay. Maybe someone will choose you. Maybe someone will appreciate you. But here's the reality. Many men lived that script, and all it gave them was burnout, resentment, and a life that didn't feel like their own. So men are stepping back, not because they fear commitment, but because they refuse to commit to chaos. They're choosing freedom before obligation, purpose before partnership, clarity before commitment. They're redefining what it means to live well, not as men who chase approval, but as men who lead themselves. The truth about why men are walking away from childhood. You were conditioned to measure your worth by output. How much you can provide, how much you can endure, how much pressure you can absorb without breaking. You learn that a real man is a source of strength for everyone but himself. And slowly, almost invisibly, you stop being a person and start being a role. Silence is praised, exhaustion is expected, self-neglect is normal. But when someone asks, "Why are you still single?" what they're really asking is, when will you start depleting yourself for someone else? When will you give up your time, your peace, your direction to play the part we expect from you? But something inside you has changed. A quiet refusal, a line drawn internally, a decision you didn't announce but cannot abandon. You're done hollowing yourself out to meet expectations that never cared about your well-being. You're realizing that solitude isn't a punishment, it's a return to clarity, to focus, to ownership. Because when you're not pouring energy into pleasing others, what do you get back? Time, presence, purpose. And with those three, a man becomes unstoppable. The power you regain when you stop chasing approval. There's a shift that happens when a man stops seeking recognition. It's quiet, it's subtle, but it's permanent. He no longer needs applause to stay disciplined. He no longer needs attention to feel alive. He no longer needs validation to move forward. He stops bending himself just to be chosen. He stops auditioning for affection. He stops compromising his integrity for temporary approval. Instead, he asks himself, do I respect the man I'm becoming? When that becomes the driving force, everything changes. His habits sharpen, his standards rise, his boundaries harden, his vision expands. He becomes the man who goes to the gym alone at dawn because discipline is his compass, the man who studies late into the night because his future is the priority, the man who doesn't beg for attention because he's finally giving attention to himself. He doesn't need dating apps, not out of bitterness, but out of alignment. He's not chasing matches. He's building momentum. He's not performing for strangers. He's crafting a life that commands respect, even if no one sees it. When his validation comes from within, he detaches from everything that once controlled him. People can withdraw, plans can change, relationships can end, but he no longer collapses with them. That kind of man is rare, and rare is valuable, rare is respected, rare is untouchable. The brutal truth about modern dating. Modern dating is not designed to nourish you, it's designed to distract you. It consumes time, energy, and mental bandwidth. It turns connection into competition, communication into calculation, intimacy into strategy. Ghosting is normal, games are expected, honesty is optional. You start adjusting your tone, your timing, your intentions. You're not connecting, you're performing. And after enough cycles of this, the same question rises. Why am I doing this? You begin to feel the fatigue, not of rejection, but of the constant emotional guessing. You're not trying to meet someone. You're trying to avoid missteps. You're trying to manage impressions. You're trying to be appealing to someone who might not even be honest about who they are. Then you step away, even briefly, and something surprising happens. You feel peace. Suddenly there's no guessing, no double meanings, no overanalyzing, no emotional turbulence, just quiet, just presence, just you, the real you, resurfacing after years of noise. That peace is the first sign you were never afraid of being alone. You were afraid of living in chaos. Solitude clears your perception. It reveals how much energy you wasted trying to sustain connections that weren't mutual, meaningful, or aligned. And that clarity becomes your filter. You stop chasing. You start choosing. Your standards rise because your peace is now non-negotiable. The real purpose of solitude. Building a life that fits you. Being single isn't an empty space. It's a construction site. It's where you rebuild who you are without interference. Most men go years, decades even, without asking themselves what they genuinely want, because they've spent their entire lives being told what they should want. A relationship, a family, a house, a role. But when you stand alone, you finally see the blank canvas. And that's when the real work begins. You start asking, what kind of man am I trying to become? What kind of life actually fits me? What habits align with the future I want? What relationships elevate me instead of draining me? You start building structure, a stronger body, a disciplined mind, a financial foundation, a mission that gives meaning to your days. You rediscover passions buried under years of obligation. You choose who you spend time with and why. Your circle shrinks, but it becomes real. Your goals expand, but they become attainable. And slowly, quietly, you build a life that doesn't need someone to complete it, only someone who can complement it. This is the phase where you become selective, not picky, strategic. You're no longer searching for someone to fill the gaps in your life. You're looking for someone who respects the structure you've built. And until that person appears, if they ever do, you're grounded, you're whole, you're steady. The new masculine identity. There is a new kind of masculinity rising, not aggressive, not loud, not performative. A masculinity rooted in self-respect, direction and discipline. It doesn't seek attention, it doesn't need validation, it doesn't chase, it leads. The most powerful men today are not the ones demanding recognition. They're the ones who operate silently, consistently, independently. They're not looking to dominate others, they're mastering themselves. They're not chasing desire, they're cultivating purpose. And because they no longer need connection, they attract better connections. Because they no longer fear solitude, they choose from strength. Because they no longer beg to be understood, they move with clarity. Respect becomes more important than approval. Standards become more important than attraction. Purpose becomes more important than partnership. These men walk alone, not because they reject connection, but because they understand that the wrong connection can destroy everything they've built. So they protect their lives like fortresses, not out of fear, out of wisdom. A man who does not fear solitude cannot be controlled. He cannot be manipulated. He cannot be bought. He becomes someone people follow, not because he demands it, but because his self-possession makes him undeniable. The superpower of chosen solitude. Solitude, when chosen consciously, becomes a weapon. It sharpens your awareness. It clarifies your vision. It forces you to confront who you are without distraction. Most people avoid this stage. They jump from relationship to relationship, from validation to validation, because silence exposes them. But you've chosen differently. You've chosen to listen to the quiet, to rebuild what was neglected, to strengthen what was weak, to understand what was previously ignored. In solitude, you learn to separate chemistry from compatibility, attention from respect, desire from alignment, being chosen from being valued. You stop chasing temporary highs. You stop accepting emotional inconsistency. You stop explaining your standards. You no longer attach your worth to anyone's approval. Your solitude becomes the filter that protects your peace. And because you've learned to stand alone, you will never again collapse for someone who offers less than you deserve. The final realization. This is where everything comes together. You understand that this phase of your life is not empty, it's intentional. What the world calls loneliness, you've recognized as elevation. You're not waiting, you're building, you're aligning, you're becoming clear on who you are. You no longer rush into relationships to feel valuable. You're no longer distracted by inconsistency. You're no longer searching for completion, because you've become complete on your own. And if one day someone truly fits into the life you've built, it won't be because you needed them. It will be because you chose them, from strength, not scarcity. But even if that day never comes, you've already won. Because you learnt the truth, a man who cannot stand alone cannot stand at all. But a man who masters solitude becomes unshakable, not cold, not bitter, not disconnected, just clear, calm, in control. And the man who doesn't fear the quiet is the one the world can never break.